Hello and welcome. Fitbit Dad himself, Liam the music reviewer, is here for another album review. This time we're going to be talking about James Blake's newest album, Assume Form. And now James Blake is an artist who, from my experience, has always been somebody that makes quite magical, ethereal music. Unlike quite a lot of people, he's been a very unique figure in music, especially this decade. But there always seems to be something, usually kind of like a really pensive, maybe even cynical mindset, that just sorts of goes against what you would assume a song would sound like, which is usually like positivity and joyousness. And this probably mainly comes from the fact that James Blake has been very kind of vocal about his struggles with mental health, with anxiety mainly, as well as depression. And I think this has usually worked out well for him anyway. I'm a big fan of his debut, Overgrown. It was a fine follow-up. I can't say I was much of a fan of his 2016 album, but I do think that you can take a look at something like Wilhelm Scream of his debut album, where this sort of contrast works really well in his favour, when he's talking about how he's so apprehensive about love and romance that even just the thought of it makes him scared to even go ahead with it, which might seem very commonplace in terms of romance concepts and music. I think he just pulls it off in his own unique way, and then gets on Life Round Here, where this sort of negativity that he's had seems almost justified by the infinite loop of trials and tribulations in his relationship. And while I don't think this attitude has been totally power washed, all you need to do is listen to the opener of this album, where he literally gets an excerpt from a slam poetry composition, I guess you would call it, or performance, called Depression, which kind of narrates about how it physically feels to be overwhelmed by depression, which was a really bulky moment. It just had resonated a lot with me. But yeah, while this can still be true of Assume Form to some extent, I feel like we're seeing a happier James Blake, just one that isn't alleviated from all his struggles and troubles, but just one that is certainly a lot happier. I think we got a taste from this, or taste for this, from the track If the Car Beside You Moves Ahead. That sadly didn't make the cut here, but that song was mainly about how you shouldn't really hold yourself to everyone else's success. You should just be focused on your own, because all you do is bring yourself down when really you're just doing well as it is, which was presented in a way that can maybe be somber to some people, but for me, I've seen the positivity in it. But Mile High is one of the songs, I think it was the first song that wasn't already released last year, and it got shown off literally the day before this album came out. And it's got a beat from Metro Boomin, it's got contributions from Travis Scott. You would probably think this would be just maybe a pandering song, which was what I was worried about, but if you just give it a chance and just engorge on just this beautifully minimal trap instrumental, and how James Blake uses this to talk about how he's embracing romance now. He is just using it in a really primal way, he's talking about just being intertwined with somebody, the intimacy, which might come across as maybe smutty or sleazy to some people, and how even just his sort of delivery in his final verse just sounds pure blissful, like he's right beside you, ASMR sort of type stuff. But the way he talks about it, you can tell that this connection he has with somebody, even if he's presenting it in a very physical way, it's sort of it just elevates that, becomes a connection that is so much more than just physical, and I think his delivery has a lot to do with that. And it was just such a highlight. Definitely one of the most accessible songs that he's ever made, but one that isn't sort of compromised by that at all. And some other songs on this album just go to further prove how he is just taken on this really what should be a very happy point in your life. Barefoot in the Park sees him collaborate with Rosalia, who just shows that vulnerability mixed in with just unfiltered beauty in her voice, and that whole song is just about how you manage to feel connected to somebody even if you're worlds apart, and there's just this sort of connection that you just can't quite pin down, and just how you sort of rub off each other, how you just become similar people, just how you would if you were walking in a park and your feet were just rubbing off just the grit or whatever whatever it's made up of. And when these two artists come together on the chorus, it is just nothing short of glorious. It just feels so satisfying, and I hope to see them collaborate again because it was just so bloody nice. And while relationships and romance kind of make up a good chunk of this album, it certainly avoids becoming too shallow or 2D, especially with the song Where's the Catch that sees Andre 3000 come on for another kind of just legacy affirming verse, using some just wonderful wordplay. His flow is just all so just great, to put it lightly, and it just sees both Andre and Blake kind of like hone in on this kind of pessimism that I was talking about before, but I think it kind of makes more sense and feels that it just works so much well in this point in the album because of how there's just been all these like really wonderful things happening so far. And the whole track is just meant to be about how you just get to a point in your life where things are going so well that you kind of go like where is the catch, like when's it gonna happen, where is it possibly gonna come. But the way the song goes about it doesn't make it feel so negative as maybe even just like a positive thing to happen, maybe, because if your life's going that well that you actually have to go like where is it, when's it coming sort of thing, then yeah, you're kind of in a fortunate situation there. Don't Miss It is another one that was released last year. It is just so sturdy and just overwhelming, maybe even to some people, where Blake kind of talks about how he's let this kind of like anxiety and worrying about where the catch is to kind of like, it kind of overtakes these moments he should be like fully embracing and just enjoy in the moment. How he can just like, he can't even remember meeting some of his like heroes, because he was just too worried about like just kind of like flunking it and ruining it, and how he's like learning from that. This isn't just a kind of like, oh, I kind of like I fucked it up, and that is kind of like a lesson to himself, but also like something that maybe even listeners can kind of like learn from, which I found again like it was very like a very kind of like low point emotionally, but one that you can still learn from, and in turn that makes it one of like the best moments on the album for me, one that definitely works a lot better in the context of this album than I would say it did as a single. In terms of low points of this record though, I wasn't a huge fan of Can't Believe the Way We Flow. It just felt a bit janky when it goes from one part to the next. It just kind of ruined the momentum. There could be the argument that that's intentional, considering the lyrical content, but I just don't think it really works all that well and kind of ruins it a bit. And then there's also the track Are You In Love, which I don't think is a bad song, but I just don't think offers much, because like every song on here seems to just kind of like bring in something new, either lyrically or instrumentally, that kind of just makes it feel constantly refreshing and just really just a really satisfying listen. And this one just didn't do much for me. These two songs are back to back, so that kind of had a sort of like, it felt like a big hitch at that point, but there's not really like, and I can't really see the argument of there being like a really strong first half and or like the second half being much stronger. I just think it works so well. It's just that those two songs just kind of like ruins the flow a little bit. But in terms of just like an overall kind of like viewing of this record, I was more than satisfied with it. I was super happy with what I got. I think it just goes to show that James Blake is still a really relevant figure in music, that he is just managing to just show his worth. I think this might be his best album, because like I said at the start, I think only his debut really managed to impress me much, but on here, besides that little kind of hiccup with those two songs, he was just constantly impressing me, just on all the different elements that make up this album are just super strong. It feels like he kind of took his time with it, and I'm now very much on the hype train, as it were, when it comes to James Blake. So in terms of a score, I'm going to go for a solid 8 out of 10. Solid 8 out of 10. If you guys have listened to this album, let me know what you made of it, what your favourite song is, what your least favourite song is, what you might give it out of 10 or 5, or whatever your rating system happens to be. But as always guys, thank you for watching, stay safe and stay hydrated.